Hello. For everyone who doesn't know me, I'm Orio's Master. I'm typically a Frost Mage player, and I'm going to be making a video going over different spell steals and remove curses or decurses that are available in Season 1 of the War Within Mythic Plus season. So the first one that I'm going to be starting out with will be Mists, and I'm just going to be going through all of these in Mythic Dungeon Tools. So this is the add-on that I'm using to show you all of these abilities that are in here. So the first one, I'm going to be going over each dungeon individually, and then at the end I'll go over like the very important ones. I'll just like reiterate them. So in Mist, there are two different spell steals that you can use. So the first one is Nourish the Forest, which is a Mistfield Tender, which the tenders are in the Maze packs. So the tenders, the Nourish the Forest is also an interruptible cast, but if the cast does get off, it's something that you can spell steal off of the mobs. And you actually do get the benefit from this. There are some spell steals that when you steal the spell from them, it just purges it versus actually stealing it, but this one's one that you'll actually get the benefit. However, this is a cast that's basically almost always will be kicked, so you won't really need to look out for this one that much. The second one will be Stimulate the Resistance, very similar again to the Nourish the Forest from the tenders, and it's going to be on the Spine Moss Staghorns. This is something that's always going to be interruptible again. If this does not get interrupted, it basically puts a massive shield on all of the targets around it, all of like its friendly targets around it. So if this does go off, this is something again that you'll actually get the benefit from spell stealing it. So make sure that if this cast does get off, which it shouldn't, it should always be interrupted, that you spell steal this because you'll get actually defensive value from this cast. And then that'll be all the spell steals for this. So it's the Staghorns, which will be in the last area, and then the Tenders, which are all in the middle area. And then for decurses, there's one decurse in this key, and that's from the Drust Spike Claws. And whenever they die, they have this Dying Breath, which curses players, increasing their damage taken by 10% for 20 seconds in the stacks. So this is something that you're going to want to be decursing on these first few on the first pull that you're going to be doing here. Depends on how many pulls you do here, but most likely it should just be the one pull that you're going to be doing here. But that's something that's a very important decurse. It'll be this group of 5 typically Spike Claws that you'll be doing with this pack. So make sure you're decursing that when that does happen. And that'll be the only decurses and spell steals for Mist. The next dungeon I'll be going over will be Necrotic Wake, and there is a spell steal in Necrotic Wake, but there is no remove curses. And the spell steal on this one is on Nerzuda, which is after the first boss in this area. It's this mini boss here. And it is the Dark Shroud, which basically makes him immune to physical damage. So this is just a purge. It won't actually spell steal it, or you won't get any benefit from it. But it's very important, especially when you're in comps that do a lot of physical damage, so a lot of like melee heavy comps. So this is something that's very important for you to purge off of Nerzuda. And that is the only one that exists in the Necrotic Wake, so it's only a spell steal for this key. The next key I'll be going over is Siege of Boralus, which there are both spell steals and remove curses in this key. So the spell steal are the Watertight Shell from the Wave Shaper, and the Wave Shapers are in a decent amount of the packs, leading all the way up until like the third boss area. There'll be Wave Shapers that you need to be aware of. And so the Wave Shaper casts Watertight Shell. If this cast does get off, this cast is an interruptible cast, but this cast should never get off in the first place. But if it does, this is something that you can spell steal and remove this DR from the Wave Shaper or whoever it's targeted on. But this is a cast that should never get off in the first place. And then other than that, there is a remove curse from Irontide Curse Blades. So the Irontide Curse Blades are mobs it's basically the mobs that will like instantly die in pulls. They have like very little health compared to everybody else. So like the shredders in these packs have like 56 million versus the curse blades are just 11 million. But they have a cursed slash, which is going to be hitting whoever they have aggro on, so it's most likely going to be the tank, and it increases their damage taken by 15% for 10 seconds, and this does stack. So when you are fighting these packs that have these curse blades in them, you want to make sure that you're dispelling your tank, otherwise your tank is going to get hit extremely hard with the damage received modifier from it. So make sure you're decursing this as well. And those are going to be the only two ones in Siege of Boralus. After that, we have Stonevault. Stonevault has a very important decurse, and it is Void Infection from the Cursed Heart Invaders. And it's this is an extremely important cast for you for decurse. And now these mobs are available in the first area here before the first boss, and then there's some in the second area. These invader packs here, and that's the only spot the invaders will be active in. So this first area and then this area here. But this is a very important decurse. It will, especially on higher keys, it absolutely trucks you. And if you have two of them, you basically just get one shot by one tick. Obviously, if there's bad overlaps, if it overlaps with one of the smashes or something, obviously big defensive needs to be used. But this is a extremely priority dispel. Otherwise, your healer will have to do a lot of healing to keep you up, because it is a very heavy dot on you. So again, this is the only curse in this key. There's no spell steals either, so it's just the Void Infection from the Cursed Heart Invaders. The next would be Dawnbreaker. Dawnbreaker has both Spellsteal and Remove Curse that you should have in them for this key. The Spellsteal isn't a very important one at all. It's from Nightfall Curse Blades, and they basically just put a little buff on them that increases their attack speed by 10% for 15 seconds. So this is just a purge effect for us. We don't actually get any benefit from this, because obviously we're not meleeing at all, so we don't get the caster attack speed, but it's something that you can help purge off of them to help your tank live a little better. So that's the only spell steal in this key. And then the second one is a Remove Curse, which is a relatively important one, and it's Ensnaring Shadows from the Nightfall Shadow Mages. And so this basically reduces the movement speed of the person it's on, and it's also a ticking dot. So again, this is a relatively high priority one for you to dispel, but this ticks nowhere near as much as like the one from Siege Boralus does, or sorry, from Stonevault does. But this is something that you will want to be decursing. The only thing with this one is it's also an interruptible cast, so this cast really shouldn't be getting off that frequently, but if it does, you need to be aware so that you can decurse it. After that, I'll be going to Batol, which is a key that only has a Remove Curse on it. But this is a very important Remove Curse, and this will be Enveloping Shadow Flame from the Twilight Warlocks. So the Twilight Warlocks you'll only find after you kill the second boss. So it's leading up to the third, in between the second and third boss, and it's any of these Twilight Warlocks in this area, in this general area over here. And they do Enveloping Shadow Flame, which is something that can be like stunned or interrupted. Or I'm pretty sure it's something that can only be stunned. I'm pretty sure it's a cast that cannot be interrupted, but it can be stunned. And for this, it basically puts a massive healing absorb on anybody, and this is a very high priority dispel, because the healing absorb it puts on you is absolutely absurd for these keys. So you need to make sure you have decurse for this so that you're dispelling them. And that is the only Remove Curse for this key. It does get a little overwhelming, especially when you do pulls that have, like, if you do this, like this pull here, I think you have like 4 Warlocks in it. Or if you have 3 Warlocks, so there'll be at least 3 decurses going on every once in a while. So you just need to make sure you're staying on top of those decurses. And then for the last 2 keys, they have neither spell steals or remove curses, and that's the Arakara City of Echoes. There's no spell steals or remove curses in this key. And then City of Threads, again, there's no spell steals or remove curses. So that's all. I covered all of them that'll be available this season, and I'm just going to reiterate again. I'll go through each dungeon, and then I'll reiterate the important ones. So Mists has Nourish the Forest from the Tenders, which are available in the maze, and then Stimulate Resistance from the Staghorns at the end of the key, and then they have the Decurse from the Drust Spikeclaws when they die. Necrotic Wake has a Spellsteal on Narzuda. Siege of Boralus has Spellsteal on the Wave Shapers from Watertight Shell, and a Remove Curse on Curse Slash from the Curse Blades. Stonevault has a Remove Curse from Void Infection from the Cursed Heart Invaders. Dawnbreaker has Spellsteal from the Nightfall Curse Blades, called Darkblade, and a Remove Curse from Ensnaring Shadows from the Shadow Mages. And then Batol has the Remove Curse Enveloping Shadow Flame from the Warlocks. And so the priority ones that you really need to be paying attention to are the Mist Decurse, especially on your tank when you do these big pulls. So that's going to be a pretty important one. And then the other two basically should never get off, but if they do, you actually get benefit from them instead of purging, and that's the Tender, that's a healing one, and then the Resistance will just give you a massive shield. But the main important one from this is the Drust Spikeclaws. Probably a prio dispel on your tank, or someone who's getting the overgrowth on them from the villager. Necrotic Wake, it's a pretty high priority to do Dispel the Dark Shroud on Urzuta if you have a melee heavy comp. If you don't really have a melee heavy comp, it's not that big of a deal because it's only immunes him to physical damage. So obviously like magic damage and everything is still fine. But it has some value to dispel that. Siege of Boralus, the Spellsteal doesn't have a whole lot of value because the cast shouldn't be getting out in the first place, but if it does, Watertight Shell is a high dispel. I did also forget one. The Commanders have Bolstering Shout, and if Bolstering Shout gets off, this is a very good Spellsteal. I forgot about this one. So the Commanders have a Bolstering Shout cast. If this gets off, it's like a 45% DR for 8 seconds, and you can actually Spellsteal in this and get value from it. So that's a pretty high value one, although that cast shouldn't be getting off either. And then the Remove Curse is a very high value one. You need to be decursing your tank as soon as... you need to be aware, though, of how many Curse Blades are in packs. So like this pack, if you do this mob here, there is 3 Curse Blades. If you do... if you just do like these two, if you do just this pack, or let's say you do this pack and this pack, which is the typical one, there's 2 Curse Blades in it. So you need to be paying attention. As soon as he gets the second debuff, you want to decurse it off of it so that it removes it. Because if you just decurse the first one and he gets hit again, it'll just re-put the Curse Blade from the other. So high priority to do the Curse Blade on your tank in this key. Stonevault, extremely high priority for the Void Infection. This dot does an extreme amount of damage, and it's a very high priority for you to dispel it. And that's available in the first section, and then in the second section near Skarmorax. For Dawnbreaker, neither of these are very high priority. Dark Blade is extremely low priority from the Curse Blades, but the Ensnaring Shadow is a relatively decent priority to decurse that, and that's from the Nightfall Shadow Mages. And then Batol is a extremely high priority on remove cursing the Enveloping Shadow Flame from the Warlocks. And I'm sure I forgot them or haven't seen some of the remove curses or spell steals. Obviously, there's some mobs that haven't been pulled at all. Especially like some of these mobs in Dawnbreaker, I haven't seen them ever, just because they're not primarily typically pulled. Or there's some casts that I may have forgotten or just haven't really realized that I can spell steal them off of them. Like I kind of realized that I forgot about the Bolstering Shout from the Commanders and Siege of Boralus. But if there are any other spell steals or remove curses that you guys know of in the War Within Season 1 Mythic Plus, please let me know in the comments below. I will have a comment up there that if I forget any, I will add the information for those specific spells. But other than that, these are all the remove curses and the spell steals for the War Within Season 1 Mythic Plus season. Thank you, and have a good one.